What's going on, everybody? It's Conti here with another video. Python is an interpreter-based high-level programming language used in the fundamental structure of many computing applications, both offline and online. Data is required by computer programs for them to perform desired tasks. The number 2, for example, can be used as a total. If I were to execute this code, the value 2 has not been used by the program in any way, and on line 3, a syntax error has been reported. So how do you write data in the correct format so that it can be accepted by Python's interpreter? Should a programmer or program user's intention be to enter a textual value, also referred to as string, quotation marks are required around the value which you wish to include in your program. Whole number values referred to as integers, or fractional numbers referred to as floats do not require quotational marks around these. Hashtags are used to write programming comments within the IDE which you use to write the Python algorithm. IDE stands for Integrated Development Environment. An example of this includes idle, IDLE. Should this code be executed again? No syntax error is reported this time. However, we have not instructed the program to do any particular task with these values. A fourth data type includes Boolean, which can be one of two values, true, and you guess the second one, false. Notice how I've used a capital letter each time. Should you use a small f for false or a small t for true, then the interpreter won't recognize the word. Computing applications, whether it be a video game or system, requires data in order to function, such as names, quantities, measurements, and all other kinds of raw facts. But where does all of this data actually go inside an actual program? A variable is the name given to the data storage area within a program and also reflects how the actual data held in each location can change, such as the marital status or occupation of an individual whose details are held in the same system. Variables, also referred to as identifiers, can be created in Python in two phases, like with any other high-level programming language. Number 1, declaration, and number 2, initialization. Declaration in high-level language programming involves 3 steps. Step 1 is naming the variable. My first variable example will be surname. The second step is establishing a data type, like the 4 we went through early on in the tutorial. In Python, we do not need to write the actual data types alongside the variable name itself. The data type will be determined by how we write the actual value connected to this variable. The third part of declaration, which we must do, having set up a variable with no meaning or context, is initialization, which basically means giving the variable its first value or meaning. For example, here I'm going to write equals, and an example surname will be Smith. Since Smith is an alphanumeric value, I want to surround the value with quotation marks, like we did with one of the initial values at the start of this tutorial. Whatever value stored within a variable changes during program execution. I'm going to write the same variable below my line of initialization on line 10. Notice how I'm also maintaining the same spelling and casing throughout my variable names, both lower and both containing the same letters. What I'm going to do now is assignment, where I alter the value stored within a variable name. Running this program again, no syntax errors are reported. Variables can also be initialized or assigned with other data types apart from string, such as integers, floats, and Boolean. Numerical values can also be converted to string using the quotation marks like we did with Smith and Jones. This value of 2, however, now cannot be used for any arithmetic calculations, such as 2 plus 2 equals 4. If I were to attempt adding this to another variable which also stored the value 2 in string format, then the value you would get would be 2 and 2, which is basically 2 string values stuck together, like 2 words in a sentence. As demonstrated by this execution here, we get 2, 2 instead of 4. A syntax error is reported if we attempt to add a string and a numerical value together. No spaces are permitted within variable names in Python, otherwise the interpreter will be looking at two individual elements where none hasn't been given any meaning. Aside from closing the gap with a backspace, an underscore between the two different parts can also be used to complete the variable name, and no syntax error is reported. Percentage symbols do not count as numerical form. You can tell with the color here on the interface of this IDE that it is of a different data type to the 20. Currency values also have the same issue should symbols be slotted next to numerical values. So how are these two problems fixed? By converting to string, like so. Fractional units can also be written in the same method should you be dealing with any currency. Should you wish to use a currency value within an arithmetic formula, simply remove the speech marks to convert the data type to float. The same also goes for the percentage value, where here 0.25 will be 25%. The storage of date varies also. In this first example on line 8, I have the day, the month and the year all stored together in a string due to the use of the / symbols. Note how just the number 1 is written for day on an alternative variable storage method of a date, as a 0 as a first value within an integer format cannot be stored. Raw numbers cannot be used as variable identifier names, nor variables with a number at the start of its name. Numerical values can though be used in variable names should it come after a value from the alphabet first of all. Apart from underscores as previously discussed, symbols cannot be used for identifier names either, regardless of where the symbols appear in the identifier name. Variables can also be initialized and assigned with other variable names also. Note how I've also connected a blank space so that when I print off the full name there is space separating John and Smith. If I'm inconsistent with any of the ways in which these variable names are written, for example if I write the forename variable on line 12 with a capital F instead of a small f as I do on line 10, then the identifier name forename with a capital F on line 12 has not been recognized. The interpreter doesn't recognize the definition because only forename with a small f was initialized with John. Boolean values can also be utilized in the same way as the previous three data types. You can also initialize or assign Boolean values to variables using statements which return either true or false themselves. So for example here I've written 5 is greater than 3, which is obviously true and is returned on the console. If I write instead 5 is less than 3, then I get false. In Python, there are certain words that a programmer can't utilize as a variable name, as these words are built-in functions that serve other purposes within the programming language. You can tell what these built-in functions are by the pair of brackets, one opening, one closing, which appear alongside a particular word which is colored differently to variables and values. In this particular example, print is a function which is used to output values, either raw ones or those stored in variables such as Boolean. Thank you very much for watching. I hope that tutorial was useful to you. To support this channel, please like and subscribe. Join me soon for another video. Take care.